Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world that feels like a time capsule, a place where everything you needed existed under one glowing roof. We're talking about the 1970s American shopping mall, that sprawling air-conditioned wonderland where teenagers gathered, families wandered, and entire communities came together under fluorescent lights and the faint hum of music. Before online shopping, before streaming services kept us home, the mall was the destination, the place where you went not just to buy things, but to be part of something larger, brighter, and unmistakably alive. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this weird little corner of the internet where history and nostalgia meet. And thank you for suggesting this topic. You always send me the best ideas. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. I know someone out there is listening at 2 a.m, feeling nostalgic for a world they might have never known but somehow miss anyway. And we are now live on Spotify. Link is in the description if you want to listen there. Now dim the lights, settle into your favourite spot, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and get comfortable. Really comfortable. Because tonight we're walking through automatic doors that whoosh open with a gentle breath of cooled air, past fountains that sparkle under skylight glass, and into stores that smell like new leather, fresh popcorn, and possibility. Have you ever wondered what it felt like to spend an entire Saturday afternoon at the mall with nothing but $5 and all the time in the world? What did it sound like when 100 conversations echoed off polished tile floors? How did it feel to sit on the edge of a fountain, watching strangers pass by, knowing that everyone in town would eventually walk through those same glass doors? What did the record store smell like? What did the orange Julius taste like on a hot summer day? And what was it about the mall that made it feel less like a building and more like the centre of the universe? Well, congratulations. You've just stepped through the main entrance. The air is cool, almost shockingly so after the heat outside. The tile gleams beneath your feet. Somewhere in the distance a cash register dings, and the whole glittering, humming, endlessly fascinating world of the 1970s mall spreads out before you like a promise. You step through the automatic doors and the world changes. Outside, the parking lot shimmers with heat, asphalt baking under the afternoon sun, cars lined up in neat rows that stretch toward the horizon. But inside, the air is different, cool, controlled, almost sweet. The doors whoosh shut behind you with a pneumatic sigh, sealing you into this glowing, self-contained universe. The mall does not ease you in gently. It greets you immediately with sound, with light, with the overwhelming sense that you've just entered somewhere important. The temperature drop is the first thing your body registers, a physical relief so immediate it makes you pause. Your skin prickles slightly as the sweat on your arms begins to cool. The air smells clean in a way that outdoor air never does, filtered and circulated and somehow artificial, but not unpleasant. It carries hints of what lies ahead, popcorn and perfume, and the faint chemical sweetness of new carpet. The floor beneath your feet gleams, polished tile reflecting the overhead lights in long, bright streaks. Your shoes make a different sound here than they do outside, a sharper click or squeak that echoes faintly in the open space. Everything about the entrance is designed to impress. The high ceilings that make you feel small in the best way, the wide corridors that promise exploration, the distant sounds of life happening somewhere deeper inside. You take a few steps forward and the mall reveals itself in layers. To your left, a directory mounted on the wall, a map of coloured boxes and store names that you'll probably ignore because wandering is half the point. To your right, a security guard in a crisp uniform, hands clasped behind his back, nodding politely at everyone who passes. Straight ahead, the main corridor stretches out like a boulevard, storefronts lining both sides, their windows bright and inviting. Other people move around you with purpose or without it. A mother with 2 children in tow, one hand gripping a stroller, the other holding a shopping bag already half full. A teenage couple walking slowly, shoulders touching, speaking in low voices. An elderly man in a cardigan, moving with the careful deliberation of someone who has all the time in the world. Everyone here is a part of the same ecosystem, drawn to this place for reasons both practical and inexplicable. The entrance area itself is a kind of buffer zone, a space between the world outside and the world within. There are benches here for people who need to rest before venturing further. There is a trash can, gleaming and empty, placed with geometric precision. There is a payphone on the wall, its metal cord coiled neatly, waiting for someone who needs to call home and say they will be late. You pause for just a moment, taking it all in, feeling the shift that happens when you cross this threshold. Outside, you are just another person moving through the world. Inside, you are a participant in something larger, a place designed specifically to welcome you, to invite you deeper, to promise that everything you might want or need exists somewhere down these bright, humming corridors. The automatic doors behind you open again, admitting another group, another gust of hot air, another small reminder of the world you have temporarily left behind, and then they close, sealing you in once more, and you begin to walk. Near the centre of the mall stands the fountain, and it is impossible to miss. Water arcs, gracefully from jets arranged in careful patterns, catching the light that filters down through skylights 2 stories above. The coins at the bottom shimmer beneath the rippling surface, hundreds of wishes tossed by children and teenagers and adults who still believe, just a little, in the magic of making a wish. The fountain is more than decoration. It is a landmark, a meeting place, the spot where you tell your friends, "I will meet you by the fountain at 3. The sound of the water is constant but not intrusive, a gentle splash and gurgle that blends into the ambient noise of the mall. It creates a kind of auditory centre, a reference point you can hear even when you cannot see it. The fountain pulls people toward it naturally, like gravity, like something primal in human nature that draws us toward moving water. The structure itself is designed to impress. The basin is wide, lined with smooth tile in shades of blue and turquoise that make the water look deeper than it actually is. The fountain jets are arranged in concentric circles, some shooting straight up, others angling inward, all timed to create patterns that shift and change every few seconds. When the fountain is at full power, the spray catches the light from above and throws tiny rainbows into the air, fleeting and beautiful. Children are drawn to it immediately. They tug their parents closer, pressing small faces against the low wall that surrounds the basin, reaching out as if to touch the water even though they know they are not supposed to. Some of them have pennies clutched in sweaty palms, coins saved specifically for this moment. They close their eyes, lips moving silently, then toss their wishes into the water with serious concentration. The pennies tumble through the air, catching light, then disappear into the pool with soft plunks that are instantly swallowed by the larger sound of the fountain. The coins accumulate over days and weeks and months, layers of copper and silver forming, patterns on the bottom. Someone must clean them out eventually, but in this moment they look permanent, like sediment from an ancient civilization. You can stand at the edge and try to count them, but you lose track quickly. There are too many, each one representing a hope, a dream, a small bargain with the universe. Teenagers use the fountain as a rallying point. They lean against the outer wall, feet crossed at the ankles, arms folded, eyes scanning the passing crowds of familiar faces. When friends arrive, there are waves, shouts, complicated handshakes. The fountain becomes the centre of their social universe, the place where plans are made, gossip is exchanged, alliances are formed and dissolved. They sit on the wide ledge, ignoring the occasional spray of water that mists over them when the wind shifts. Adults pause here too, though more briefly. They check their watches, glance around, wait with the patient impatience of people who have been stood up before and know it will happen again. Some of them sit on nearby benches, shopping bags clustered at their feet, taking a moment to rest before continuing their errands. The fountain gives them permission to stop, to breathe, to simply exist for a few minutes in this strange, manufactured paradise. At night, when the mall is closed and the crowds have gone, the fountain still runs. The water still arcs and falls. The coins still glitter on the bottom. The light still filters down from above. It continues its patient work of being beautiful, of creating sound and movement and possibility, waiting for the doors to open again and the people to return. The mall has a smell, and once you know it, you never forget it. It is layered, complex, built from a dozen different sources blending into something that exists nowhere else. There is the cool, slightly metallic tang of air conditioning, the kind that makes you shiver slightly when you first step inside. There is popcorn, buttery and warm, drifting from the snack. Stand near the entrance. There is the clean, soapy scent of the department store cosmetics counter. There is leather from the shoe store, cinnamon from the bakery, chlorine faintly from the fountain. Each smell carries its own memory, its own association. The popcorn smell means Saturday afternoon, allowance money burning a hole in your pocket, the freedom of having nowhere you need to be. The perfume smell means special occasions, your mother trying on samples at the Estée Lauder counter while you stand nearby, slightly bored, waiting for the moment when she will spray something on your wrist and tell you to smell it. The leather smell means new shoes for school, the stiffness of them, the way they squeak when you walk until you break them in. But beyond the individual sense is something harder to define, a base note that belongs only to the mall itself. It is the smell of recycled air, of controlled climate, of a space that exists outside normal weather and seasons. It is vaguely chemical but not unpleasant, like the inside of a new car or a freshly cleaned hotel room. It is the smell of newness trying to maintain itself, of surfaces being constantly wiped down, and floors being constantly mopped, and merchandise being constantly restocked. The smell changes as you move through the mall. Near the entrance, it is lighter, fresher, still mixed with occasional gusts of outside air when the doors open. As you move deeper, it thickens, becomes more concentrated. Near the food court, it is dominated by competing restaurants, hot dogs and pizza and fried chicken, all battling for dominance. Near the bookstore, it is paper and ink and the particular mustiness of books stacked close together. Near the pet store, it is cedar shavings and birdseed and something faintly animal that is not quite unpleasant but definitely noticeable. There is comfort in the familiarity of it. You could be blindfolded and dropped into any mall in America, and within seconds you would know where you were. The smell is that consistent, that universal. It transcends geography and architecture and local culture. A mall in California smells essentially the same as a mall in Ohio, which smells the same as a mall in Florida. They're all part of the same olfactory family, variations on a theme rather than distinct compositions. Sometimes, years later, you will catch a whiff of something: buttered popcorn at a movie theatre, a particular perfume on a passing stranger, the chlorine tang of a swimming pool, and it will hit you with unexpected force. You will be transported instantly back to the mall of your childhood, standing near the fountain with friends, laughing about something you can no longer remember, feeling the particular kind of happiness that comes from being young and free and surrounded by possibility. The smell unlocks something deeper than memory. It unlocks the feeling of being there, of existing in that moment, of being the person you were before life got more complicated. And for just a second, walking down a street or standing in a grocery store or sitting at your desk, you are back. The doors have whooshed open, the cool air has wrapped around you, and the whole bright, humming world of the mall stretches out before you once more. At each end of the mall stand the anchor stores, massive department stores that give the whole complex its shape and purpose. Sears, J.C. Penney, sometimes Macy's or Montgomery Ward, depending on where you are. These stores are not just shops, they are institutions, multi-story labyrinths filled with everything a family might need. You could spend an entire afternoon in just one of them, wandering from housewares to hardware, to the automotive section in the basement, where oil cans and fan belts hang on pegboard walls. The entrance to an anchor store feels different from the entrance to a regular shop. The doorways are wider, grander, designed to accommodate crowds. There are no doors to push open, just wide thresholds that lead from the bright, echoing corridors of the mall into the more enclosed, carpeted world of the department store. The transition is immediate. The muzak changes to something more specific to this store's brand. The lighting shifts, becoming warmer or cooler depending on the section you enter. The smell becomes more concentrated, more deliberate. If you enter through the cosmetic section, which you often do because it is usually positioned right at the mall entrance, you're immediately surrounded by glass cases and perfume clouds and women in crisp uniforms offering samples. The floor is polished to a mirror shine. The lighting is bright and unforgiving, designed to show every detail of skin and makeup. Behind the counters, walls of products rise in neat rows, lipsticks and foundations and powders organized by brand and shade. Everything gleams. Everything promises transformation. Move past cosmetics and the store opens up into something older, something that predates the mall itself. These department stores have been around for decades, some of them, anchoring downtown shopping districts long before anyone imagined building entire climate-controlled retail complexes. They carry that history with them, visible in the solid construction, the high ceilings, the sense of permanence that newer stores lack. The escalators are central, often positioned in the middle of the store, rising through open atriums that let you see multiple floors at once. You step onto the moving stairs and feel that slight lurch as the mechanism catches, then the smooth glide upward. The handrail moves beneath your palm, warm and slightly sticky. You rise past displays, past other shoppers descending on the opposite escalator, past signs announcing sales and promotions in bold letters. Each floor has its own character, its own purpose. Menswear on one level, rows of suits on hangers, shirts folded in neat stacks, ties displayed on racks like colourful fish, housewares. On another, aisles of dishes and glassware and small appliances, coffee makers and toasters gleaming under fluorescent lights. The toy department, usually on an upper floor, where children tug their parents from aisle to aisle, pointing at boxes and begging in urgent whispers. The employees move through these spaces with practiced efficiency, wearing name tags and store-branded smocks, restocking shelves and answering questions and operating cash registers with mechanical precision. They know the store's layout by heart, can direct you to any department without hesitation. Some of them have worked here for years, watching the mall grow up around their store, watching customers age and change and bring their own children shopping. In the hardware section, usually tucked away in a back corner or basement level, the atmosphere shifts again. The air smells like machine oil and metal and sawdust. Tools hang on pegboards in organised rows, hammers and wrenches and screwdrivers sorted by size. Paint cans stack on shelves, their labels promising colours you can barely imagine. This section is quieter, frequented mostly by men in work clothes who know exactly what they need. The anchor stores are destinations unto themselves, but they also serve a larger purpose. They give the mall credibility, weight, a sense that this is a serious shopping complex and not just a collection of small shops. They draw people in from miles around. People who might not come for a single boutique, but will drive 20 minutes to visit a Sears or a JCPenney. And once they are here, once they have parked and walked through those automatic doors, they might as well explore the rest of the mall. They might as well see what else is here. The anchor stores are the foundation, the bedrock, the reason the mall exists at all. The record store sits halfway down the main corridor, and you can hear it before you see it. Music spills out into the mall, not loudly but persistently, a steady pulse of sound that draws you in. Inside, the walls are lined with bins, thousands of albums filed alphabetically, their cardboard edges worn soft from thumbs flipping through. The air smells like vinyl and cardboard and possibility. This is where you come to discover music, to spend an hour lost in listening booths with headphones pressed to your ears, deciding whether this album is worth your carefully saved allowance. The bins are organised with almost religious precision: rock, pop, soul, country, jazz, classical. Each section clearly marked, each album filed exactly where it belongs. The store employees take this seriously. They know the inventory. They have opinions. Ask them about a band and they will tell you not just whether they have the album, but whether the album is worth buying, which tracks are best, what you should listen to next if you like this sound. The album covers face outward in special displays near the front, new releases and staff picks and records the store is trying to push. The artwork is everything. Bold graphics and photographs and illustrations that turn each album into a small poster, a piece of art you can hold in your hands. You flip through them slowly, reading the titles, recognizing band names, discovering others you have never heard of but whose covers intrigue you enough to pull them out for closer inspection. Toward the back of the store are the listening booths, small enclosed spaces barely bigger than phone booths, equipped with turntables and headphones. You take your albums to the counter and the clerk nods, waves you toward the booths. Inside, you close the door, shutting out the noise of the mall and the store, creating a private bubble of sound. You slide the record from its sleeve, careful not to touch the grooves, and place it on the turntable. The needle drops with a soft crackle, and then the music begins. This is where you fall in love. This is where you discover the band that will define your teenage years, the album you will listen to 1,000 times, the songs that will follow you into adulthood. You stand in the booth, eyes closed, letting the music fill your head, feeling it in a way that radio can never replicate. The album plays straight through, no interruptions, no commercials, just the pure unfiltered vision of the artists who made it. Other customers browse around you, flipping through bins with practiced efficiency. Some of them are older, serious collectors hunting for specific pressings or rare imports. Others are your age, kids with limited budgets trying to decide which single album is worth the sacrifice of a week's allowance. Everyone moves with a kind of reverence here, understanding that music is not just product, it is identity. It is culture. It is the soundtrack to life itself. The posters on the walls are aspirational, concert announcements and band photos and album advertisements that promise experiences beyond the mall, beyond this town. They show musicians on stage, spotlit and powerful, living lives that seem impossibly glamorous. You study them while waiting in line, imagining what it would be like to see these bands live, to be part of that moment when the music is happening right in front of you. At the counter, the transaction feels weighted with importance. You hand over your money, and the clerk slides the album into a paper bag with the store's logo printed on the side. The bag is thin, barely protective, but carrying it feels significant. You walk out of the store holding your purchase carefully, already planning when you will get home and play it on your own turntable, already imagining how it will sound in your bedroom with the door closed and the volume up as loud as you dare. The record store is more than retail. It is education. It is community. It is the place where taste is formed and refined, where you learn not just what you like, but why you like it. The employees become trusted guides. The other customers become silent companions in discovery. And the music itself becomes the language through which you begin to understand yourself and the world you're growing into. The clothing stores in the mall are temples of 1970s style, and walking through them feels like stepping into a different dimension where everything is bolder, brighter, more confident. Bell-bottoms hang on racks in every possible colour, denim and corduroy and polyester blends that shimmer under fluorescent lights. Platform shoes line the walls, stacked in impossible heights. Peasant blouses with embroidered flowers drape from hangers. Everywhere you look, there are patterns, stripes, and plaids, and paisleys swirling together in combinations that somehow work. The store windows display mannequins frozen in poses meant to convey casual confidence, one hip jutted out, one hand on a waist, heads turned at angles that real necks could never sustain. They wear complete outfits, carefully coordinated to show you not just individual pieces but entire looks, the flared jeans with the platform sandals with the halter top with the fringed vest. This is how you're supposed to dress. This is what cool looks like. Inside, the racks are organised by category, but encourage mixing, matching, experimenting. You flip through hangers, sliding them along metal rails that squeak softly. The fabrics have weight and texture, thick corduroys that make a soft whispering sound when you rub them together. Polyester blends that feel slippery and slightly electric. Denim so stiff it could almost stand on its own. Everything is designed to make a statement, to catch the eye, to announce your presence before you say a word. The fitting rooms are at the back, small cubicles separated by curtains that never quite close all the way. You carry your selections carefully draped over your arm, stepping into the cramped space where a single mirror reflects your uncertain expression. The lighting is harsh, unforgiving, showing every flaw. You pull off your current clothes and step into the new ones, struggling with zippers and buttons, trying to imagine how this outfit will look outside this terrible lighting, in the real world, on your actual body moving through space. Sometimes it works, sometimes you pull on a pair of bell-bottoms and catch a glimpse of who you could be, someone more confident, more stylish, more complete. The jeans hug your hips and flare dramatically from the knees down, the hem brushing the floor, ready to be worn with those platform shoes you've been eyeing. You turn, checking the back view, smoothing the fabric, already imagining wearing this to school, to the next party, anywhere you want to be noticed. Sometimes it does not work. The proportions are wrong, or the colour makes you look washed out, or the fit is just slightly off in ways that cannot be fixed. You peel the garment off with a mixture of relief and disappointment, hanging it back on the hook, mentally crossing it off your list of possibilities. The salespeople circle the floor, straightening racks, refolding items customers have examined and left in disarray. They offer help in voices that manage to be both friendly and vaguely judgmental. "Can I start a fitting room for you?" They have seen everything. Every body type, every fashion disaster, every moment of self-doubt that plays out in their mirrors. They know which items sell and which linger on racks for months. They know the markup, the real cost, the tricks of retail. At the register, your purchase is folded with theatrical care, tissue paper smoothed between layers, everything placed in a bag with rope handles that cut into your palm when you carry it. The receipt is long, itemized, proof of the transaction that feels more significant than it probably should. You have not just bought clothes, you have bought a version of yourself, a possibility, a small piece of the person you're trying to become. Outside the store, you glance at the window display, again seeing it differently now that you own a piece of that world. The mannequins no longer mock you, they welcome you. You're part of this now, part of the conversation about style and identity that plays out across the mall in 1,000 small transactions just like yours. The food court did not exist yet, not as we know it now, but the mall has its version. Small restaurants cluster near the centre, each one offering its own specialty. There is the hot dog stand with its rotating spit of glistening franks. There is the pizza place where slices sit under heat lamps, cheese still bubbling. There is the Orange Julius counter where employees blend drinks with theatrical flair, pouring bright orange liquid into tall cups. And somewhere nearby, a Woolworths lunch counter where you can still get a grilled cheese sandwich and a Coke for less than $1. The seating is communal, small tables with plastic chairs arranged in clusters, everything bolted to the floor to prevent theft or rearrangement. The tables are designed for efficiency rather than comfort, easy to clean, difficult to linger at. But people linger anyway, spreading shopping bags around their feet, resting legs that ache from walking, taking a break from the endless decisions of retail. The smells here are overwhelming, a collision of cooking oils and spices and sweetness that creates its own thick atmosphere. The hot dogs rotate slowly on their spit, browning in spots, glistening with grease. The pizza oven glows red in the back of its stall, the counter employee sliding pies in and out with a long wooden paddle. The Orange Julius machine whirs and grinds, its contents visible through clear plastic, a swirl of orange and white that becomes smooth and drinkable in seconds. You stand in line reading the menu board mounted above the counter, even though you already know what you want. The prices are hand-painted on wooden panels, numbers that will change when inflation demands it, but for now remain reasonable, achievable on a teenager's budget. A slice of pizza costs 95 cents. A hot dog with fries is $1.25. An Orange Julius, small, is 70 cents. When you reach the counter, you order in the shorthand of fast food, pointing at items, confirming sizes, accepting whatever the cashier offers without complaint. Your food arrives quickly, assembled with practiced efficiency, handed over in paper boats or on plastic trays or in wax paper wrappings that immediately begin to soak through with grease. You find a table, claiming it by setting down your tray and draping your jacket over the back of the chair. The pizza slice is enormous, floppy, requiring 2 hands and a careful folding technique to eat without making a mess. The cheese stretches when you bite, long elastic strings that refuse to break cleanly. The sauce is tangy and slightly sweet. The crust is chewy and soft, nothing like the crispy pizza you will eat in better restaurants later in life, but perfect for this moment, this place, this particular kind of hunger. Around you, the food court hums with life. Families occupy larger tables, parents cutting hot dogs into bite-sized pieces for toddlers, teenagers passing fries back and forth across the table, elderly couples eating in comfortable silence. Everyone is here for the same reason, to refuel, to rest, to take a moment between shopping and going home. The Orange Julius is served in a cup so cold it sweats immediately, condensation beading on the wax paper exterior. You take a sip through the straw, and the taste is indescribable. Not quite orange juice, not quite milkshake, something in between that is both refreshing and filling. It coats your throat as you swallow, leaving a sweetness that lingers. Clean-up is part of the ritual. You gather your trash, the greasy paper, the empty cups, the napkins you use to wipe your hands and face. You carry it all to the large trash can stationed at the edge of the seating area, disposing of everything in one satisfying gesture. And then, refueled and rested, you return to the mall, ready to continue your exploration, your shopping, your wandering through this strange and wonderful world that exists under one glowing roof. The toy store is a universe unto itself, and for children it might as well be the entire reason the mall exists. The moment you step inside, your senses are overwhelmed. Bright colours everywhere, toys stacked floor to ceiling, shelves organised by category but somehow still feeling like glorious chaos. There are board games in tall boxes, Monopoly and Life and Clue, There are action figures hanging on pegs, Star Wars characters still in their packaging. There are bicycles gleaming near the back, streamers trailing from handlebars, kickstands planted firmly on linoleum. The entrance is designed to stop children in their tracks, a wall of impulse purchases at child height. Small plastic toys and candy and cheap novelties that cost less than $1 but feel, in the moment, absolutely essential. Children grab at these immediately, holding them up to parents who have learned to say no automatically, reflexively, though sometimes, if the child is persistent enough or the parent is tired enough, the answer changes. The aisles stretch deep into the store, each one dedicated to a different category of play. The doll aisle is predominantly pink, boxes featuring smiling children holding plastic babies or fashion dolls with impossible proportions. The action figure aisle is darker, more dramatic, packaging that promises adventure and conflict and heroes saving the day. The board game aisle is tall, boxes stacked to heights that require ladders, classics mixed with new releases, games that promise family fun even though they inevitably end in arguments about rules. The air smells like plastic and cardboard and possibility, a chemical sweetness that is not quite pleasant but becomes familiar, comfortable. It smells like childhood itself, like birthdays and holidays and the particular excitement of new toys still in their packaging, pristine and full of potential. Children move through the store with barely contained energy, pointing, touching, begging. They know they cannot have everything. They know they probably cannot have anything today, but they catalogue their desires anyway, building mental lists, practicing for the moment when they will be allowed to choose, when a birthday or Christmas or good report card will open the gates and let them claim something from this paradise. Parents follow behind with expressions ranging from patient to exhausted, redirecting grabbing hands, reading price tags with visible winces, calculating whether they can afford the toy their child is currently describing as the only thing they have ever wanted in their entire lives. The negotiations are constant. Not today. Maybe for your birthday. Put that back. We already have that at home, if you behave for the rest of the shopping trip. Toward the back of the store, the bigger toys wait, the bicycles and wagons and plastic playhouses that require assembly and significant investment. These are not impulse purchases. These are planned, saved for, gifted by grandparents, or given as major holiday presents. Children approach them with reverence, touching handlebars, sitting in wagon beds, imagining ownership even though they know it is unlikely. The toy store employees wear smocks or aprons covered in the store's logo, and they possess knowledge that borders on encyclopedic. They know which toys are hot sellers, which ones are discontinued, which ones have small parts that make them inappropriate for younger children. Parents ask them questions constantly, seeking guidance, looking for recommendations, hoping someone else can tell them what their child actually wants versus what the child thinks they want. At the checkout counter, the transaction takes on ceremonial weight. If a child is lucky enough to be buying something today, they clutch it tightly, already possessing it in their mind even though technically it still belongs to the store. The cashier rings it up, slides it into a bag, and hands it over with a smile that says they understand. They remember. They know what this moment means. Walking out of the toy store empty-handed is a particular kind of disappointment, but even that has its place. It builds anticipation. It makes the eventual acquisition, whenever it comes, feel more earned, more special. And in the meantime, the memory of those aisles, those possibilities, those brief moments of imagining ownership, those stay with you, warming you until the next visit, the next opportunity, the next chance to claim something from that bright and chaotic universe. The bookstore sits quietly between louder, flashier shops, easy to overlook if you're not paying attention, but step inside and the world softens. The carpet muffles your footsteps. The lighting is warm, almost amber. Shelves line the walls, packed with paperbacks whose spines are creased and inviting. There are racks of bestsellers near the front, thick hardcovers with dust jackets promising adventure, romance, mystery. There are magazines in neat rows, glossy covers catching the light, and in the back corner, a small section for children where picture books sit at a height designed for small hands. The smell here is distinct, immediately recognizable to anyone who loves books. It is the smell of paper and ink and binding glue, slightly musty but not unpleasant, mixed with the faint scent of new carpet and the coffee someone is drinking behind the counter. It is a smell that signals safety, quiet, the permission to slow down and browse without pressure. The bestseller table near the entrance displays the books everyone is reading, the novels that will define this year, this moment in culture. Jaws with its ominous cover, The Exorcist promising terror, Jonathan Livingston Seagull offering philosophy disguised as fable. These books have been discussed on talk shows, reviewed in newspapers, passed between friends with urgent recommendations. Owning them means participating in a conversation that extends beyond your immediate circle. Further back, the paperback racks offer more options, organised loosely by genre. Romance novels with illustrated covers showing embracing couples, titles promising passion and drama. Science fiction paperbacks with surreal artwork, spaceships and alien landscapes and futures both utopian and dystopian. Mysteries with stark covers, often just text and a single evocative image, inviting you to solve puzzles alongside detectives. You run your fingers along the spines, tilting your head to read titles, pulling books out at random to read the back cover copy. Each one is a doorway to somewhere else, a promise that for a few hours or a few days you can leave your life behind and inhabit someone else's story, someone else's world. The choice feels significant. You cannot afford to buy many books. Each selection must be considered carefully. The magazine rack offers a different kind of reading, more immediate, more disposable. Newsweek and Time promise to explain current events. Rolling Stone offers music journalism and counterculture credibility. National Geographic presents the world in glossy photographs. Teen magazines promise beauty tips and posters of pop stars. You flip through them while standing, reading articles and fragments, memorizing images, debating whether any of them are worth purchasing. In the children's section, parents crouch beside toddlers, reading picture books in gentle voices, pointing at illustrations, asking questions that check comprehension and engagement. The books here are sturdy, designed to withstand sticky hands and repeated readings. Some of them are classics, passed down through generations. Others are new, experimenting with format and subject matter, trying to capture the attention of a generation raised on television. There are chairs scattered throughout the store, inviting customers to sit and read, to spend time here beyond mere shopping. Some people take advantage of this, settling in with stacks of books, reading entire chapters before deciding whether to buy. The staff does not chase them away. The bookstore understands that readers need time, need space, need permission to discover what speaks to them. At the counter, a clerk with glasses and a cardigan helps customers, answering questions about inventory, special orders, upcoming releases. They know books the way the record store employees know music, with passion and expertise and strong opinions. They make recommendations based on careful listening, understanding not just what you say you want, but what you actually need. When you finally make your selection, carrying your book to the register feels like concluding a quest. The clerk slides it into a paper bag with the store's name printed on the side. The bag is light but feels weighted with potential, with hours of reading ahead, with escape and education, and the particular pleasure of a new story waiting to unfold. You leave the bookstore slowly, reluctantly, already planning your next visit, already thinking about the next book you will buy, the next world you will enter, the next time you will step into this quiet refuge and let the rest of the mall fade away. For teenagers, the mall is not just a place to shop. It is a place to be, to exist outside the watchful eyes of parents, to claim territory and test independence. They move in packs, clusters of denim and feathered hair and nervous laughter. They drift from store to store without buying much of anything, touching merchandise, trying on sunglasses, spraying perfume testers. They congregate near the arcade, leaning against walls, flipping through records, sipping sodas that last for hours. The mall is their domain, and they navigate it with the confidence of people who belong. The moment they arrive, they scan for familiar faces, looking for friends, for crushes, for rivals. The mall is a social ecosystem, and everyone has a place in it. The popular kids claim the best spots, the benches near the fountain, the tables in the food area, positions that offer maximum visibility. They sit with studied casualness, legs crossed, voices carrying, making sure everyone knows they're here, that they matter, that this space belongs to them. The less popular kids orbit at a distance, building their own smaller groups, claiming less prominent territory, but territory nonetheless. They gather near the bookstore or the record store, places that signal their interests, their identities, their separation from the mainstream. They talk about bands no one else has heard of, books that haven't been assigned in English class, movies that play at the art house theatre across town. The mall offers freedom in doses that feel intoxicating. Parents drop their teenagers off at the entrance, handing over a few dollars with instructions to be back by a certain time. And then, miraculously, the teenagers are alone, unsupervised, trusted to navigate this adult space without adult guidance. They test boundaries carefully, seeing how loud they can be before security intervenes, how long they can loiter before store employees ask them to either buy something or leave. They develop rituals, routes they walk every visit, stores they check automatically even if they have no money to spend. They know which shops will let them browse indefinitely, and which ones follow them with suspicious eyes. They know which movie theatre employee is likely to sneak them into R-rated films. They know which fountain coins are easiest to see and which bathroom stalls have the best graffiti. Romance blooms in the mall's corridors, tentative and public and terrifying. Couples hold hands while walking, fingers intertwined, palms sweating, but neither person willing to let go first. They share, sodas with 2 straws. They sit close on benches, shoulders touching, having conversations that feel profound but will be forgotten by morning. First kisses happen behind decorative plants, quick and nervous and immediately regretted or immediately treasured depending on chemistry and timing. The arcade is a particular hub of teenage energy, a place where skill can be demonstrated, where competition creates hierarchy, where quarters represent both currency and social capital. The best players draw crowds, other teenagers watching over their shoulders as they navigate pixelated mazes or battle alien invasions. Achieving a high score means your initials get entered into the machine's memory, a form of immortality that will last until someone better comes along. Arguments break out sometimes, minor dramas that feel catastrophic in the moment. Who said what about whom? Who is dating whom? Who betrayed whom? These conflicts play out in whispered conversations, in hurt expressions, in one person storming off while friends follow in their wake, offering comfort and fanning flames in equal measure. The mall witnesses it all without judgment, providing the stage for these small tragedies and comedies of adolescence. Security guards patrol with the weary patience of people who have seen everything before. They know which teenagers are actually causing trouble, and which ones are just being teenagers. They issue warnings, break up gatherings that are getting too large or too loud. gently enforce the rules while understanding that the mall needs these young people, needs their energy and their spending and their eventual transformation into adult customers. As evening approaches and parents begin returning for pickup, the teenagers gather their belongings, finish their sodas, exchange plans for next time. They exit reluctantly, already planning their return, already counting the days until they can come back and claim this territory once more, because the mall, for all its commercial purpose, has become something else for them. It has become a place where they can practice being adults, where they can make mistakes in relative safety, where they can discover who they are and who they want to become, all under one fluorescent-lit, air-conditioned, endlessly patient roof. The pet store sits near the back of the mall, and you can hear it from several stores away. The chirping, the barking, the faint rustling of small creatures moving in cages. Inside, the air is humid, slightly warmer than the rest of the mall, thick with the smell of cedar shavings and birdseed. Glass aquariums line one wall, glowing blue-green with underwater light, fish darting between plastic plants. Puppies tumble over each other in pens near the window, pressing wet noses against glass while children press back from the other side, begging parents in whispers. The sound is constant and layered, a symphony of animal life that creates its own atmosphere. Parakeets chatter in cages hung from ceiling hooks, their bright feathers catching the light. A parrot in the corner screams periodically, a sound so loud and unexpected it makes first-time visitors jump. Guinea pigs squeak from their enclosures, high-pitched and insistent. Somewhere in the back, a litter of kittens mews softly, tiny voices that draw people deeper into the store. The smell is unmistakable, not unpleasant exactly, but definitely present. Cedar and pine shavings form soft beds in most cages, creating a woodsy bass note. The birdseed adds a grainy, earthy scent. The aquarium section smells faintly of fish food and water that is kept clean but still carries the organic tang of living creatures. Everything is well maintained, but there is no hiding the fact that this is a place where animals eat and sleep and exist in close quarters. Children are magnetically drawn here, tugging parents by the hand, faces lighting up the moment they cross the threshold. They rush immediately to the puppy display, pressing hands and faces against the glass, making cooing sounds, pointing out their favourites. Look at that one. That one's looking at me. Can we get that one? Please, please. The puppies respond with wagging tails and clumsy movements, falling over their own feet in their excitement, climbing over siblings to get close to the glass. The fish tanks line the wall in rows, each one a miniature ecosystem glowing with artificial light. Goldfish swim in lazy circles. Tropical fish flash brilliant colours, blues and yellows and reds that seem impossibly bright. Some tanks hold single large fish, Oscars or angelfish, swimming with slow dignity. Others are crowded with tiny neon tetras, moving in synchronized schools that turn and dart as one organism. Aquarium supplies fill an entire aisle. Bags of gravel in different colours, plastic plants in improbable shades of purple and pink, filters and heaters and testing kits for customers serious about maintaining their tanks. The store employees can talk for 20 minutes about water chemistry, about pH levels and nitrogen cycles, information that sounds impossibly complex for something as simple as keeping a fish alive. The small animal section offers hamsters and gerbils in glass terrariums, running on wheels that squeak rhythmically, burrowing into shavings, stuffing food into cheek pouches with single-minded dedication. Rabbits sit in larger enclosures, noses twitching, ears rotating to catch sounds. White mice with pink eyes scramble over each other, moving in constant anxious motion. Parents negotiate carefully here, knowing that saying yes to a pet means months or years of responsibility, feeding and cleaning and veterinary bills. They point out the practical difficulties. Who will take care of it? What happens when we go on vacation? Do you really want to clean a cage every week? Children make promises they absolutely believe in the moment, promises about responsibility and commitment that may or may not survive the first month of actual pet ownership. The store sells supplies too, bags of dog food stacked on pallets, cat litter in heavy boxes, leashes and collars hanging on hooks, toys designed to squeak or rattle or bounce unpredictably. Every item represents the ongoing cost of pet ownership, the daily reality that extends far beyond the initial excitement of bringing an animal home. At the register, customers make their purchases. Tropical fish scooped into plastic bags filled with water, hamsters placed in small cardboard carriers with air holes punched in the sides, bags of food and packages of treats rung up alongside. The employees offer advice with every transaction, instructions on feeding and care, warnings about common mistakes, phone numbers to call if problems arise. You leave the pet store feeling the weight of all that life contained in one small space, all those creatures waiting for homes, for families, for children who will love them fiercely for a while before the novelty fades and parents take over the daily care. It is a place of beginnings, of promises, of hope that this time will be different, this pet will be cherished, this responsibility will be honoured. And sometimes it is. Sometimes the goldfish lives for years. Sometimes the puppy becomes a beloved family member. Sometimes the promises made in front of glass enclosures are actually kept. The jewellery store gleams like a treasure chest, all polished glass and soft lighting designed to make everything sparkle. Display cases line the walls, each one filled with watches, necklaces, rings arranged on velvet pillows. The carpet is thick, muffling footsteps, making the space feel hushed and important. Salespeople move quietly, speaking in low tones, handling each piece with reverence. This is where couples come to look at engagement rings, standing close together, speaking in whispers, imagining futures they are just beginning to build. The lighting here is carefully calibrated, positioned to catch facets and throw sparkle across surfaces. Everything glitters, gold chains draped across black velvet, diamond rings catching light from multiple angles, watches with faces that gleam like small mirrors. Even the store itself seems to glow, as if elegance is a quality that can be cultivated through proper presentation. The display cases are arranged by category, wedding rings in one section, the bands ranging from simple gold to elaborate designs with inlaid stones, watches in another, mechanical faces visible through crystal, second hands sweeping smoothly, promising precision and reliability. Necklaces hang on small stands, chains of varying lengths and weights, some simple, others ornate with pendants that dangle and catch the light. The salespeople wear suits or dresses, professional attire that signals this is serious business, transactions that matter. They approach customers with practiced warmth, asking questions designed to narrow possibilities. What is the occasion? What is your budget? What style does she prefer? They listen carefully to answers, nodding, making mental calculations about what to show and what to keep in the back. For young men shopping for engagement rings, the experience is often overwhelming. They stand before cases filled with options that all look similar but vary wildly in price. The salesperson explains the 4 C's: cut, colour, clarity, carat, terms that sound scientific and important. They bring out rings on velvet trays, placing them under special lights that make the stones flash and fire. The young men nod seriously, trying to understand the differences, trying to calculate whether they can afford what they think they should buy. Young women sometimes accompany them, or sometimes they come back later after being proposed to help with the final selection or sizing. They try rings on, holding their hands at arm's length, turning them to catch the light, imagining this ring on their finger permanently, imagining showing it to friends and family, imagining the weight of it becoming so familiar they stop noticing it except when it catches their eye unexpectedly. The watch section caters mostly to men, though there are delicate women's watches too, small faces on thin bands. The men's watches are substantial, heavy, designed to signal success and taste. Salespeople open display cases and lift watches carefully, placing them on wrists, adjusting bands, stepping back to let customers admire the effect. These are not just timepieces, they are status symbols, investments, heirlooms to be passed down. Other jewellery fills the remaining space. Bracelets, thin bangles that jingle when worn together, or thick cuffs that make statements. Earrings on cards, studs and hoops and dangles in every style imaginable. Brooches for an older generation. Decorative pins that fasten to lapels and collars. Charm bracelets with tiny silver symbols representing hobbies, achievements, memories. The transaction here takes time. Nothing is rushed. The salesperson writes up the sale carefully, explaining payment plans if necessary, discussing insurance, offering services for sizing and cleaning and repair. They place the selected item in a small box, cushioned and protected, then slide the box into a bag with the store's name embossed on the outside. Handing it over feels ceremonial, a recognition that what is being purchased is not just metal and stone, but meaning, commitment, love, transformed into something that can be worn and displayed and treasured. Couples leave holding hands, the bag swinging between them, already planning the proposal or the wedding or the anniversary celebration this purchase represents. Inside the store, the salespeople return items to cases, straightening displays, preparing for the next customer who will step onto that thick carpet and be enveloped by that soft glow and begin their own journey toward a purchase that will mark a moment in time, a decision, a promise made tangible through jewellery that sparkles under carefully positioned lights. The arcade pulses with light and sound, a sensory overload that draws you in like gravity. Machines line the walls, each one glowing, beeping, flashing in rhythmic patterns. Pac-Man gobbles dots with mechanical persistence. Space invaders march down screens in relentless formation. Pinball machines clang and ding as silver balls ricochet between bumpers. The air smells like electricity and carpet cleaner, and the faint metallic tang of coins. Teenagers cluster around machines, leaning in close, fingers dancing across buttons, lost completely in pixelated worlds. The sound is overwhelming, a cacophony of electronic chirps and beeps and digitized music competing for attention. Each machine plays its own soundtrack, short loops that repeat endlessly. The Space Invaders march has its distinctive descending bass notes, speeding up as enemies approach the bottom of the screen. Pac-Man has its waka waka eating sound. Pinball machines contribute bells and buzzers and the satisfying thunk of the plunger launching a new ball into play. The lighting is dim overall but punctuated by the bright glow of screens, creating a cave-like atmosphere where the only illumination comes from the games themselves. This makes the arcade feel separate from the rest of the mall, a pocket universe operating by different rules. Players' faces are lit from below by the glow of screens, giving everyone a slightly eerie appearance, eyes focused with laser intensity on moving pixels. Quarters are the currency here, heavy and substantial in your pocket, each one representing 30 seconds or a minute of play depending on how skilled you are. You approach the change machine near the entrance, feeding in dollar bills that are accepted with mechanical indifference, receiving 4 quarters in return that drop into the metal tray with satisfying weight. You scoop them up, warm and solid in your palm, and begin surveying your options. The most popular machines always have small crowds, players taking their turn while others wait, watching, learning patterns and strategies, offering advice or heckling depending on how the game is going. High scores are displayed at the top of each screen, 3 initials marking the best players, a form of immortality that lasts until someone better comes along. Seeing your initials up there, holding the top spot even temporarily, brings a surge of pride that feels disproportionate to the actual accomplishment, but is real nonetheless. Pinball machines offer a different experience, more physical, requiring body English as much as quick reflexes. Players stand with hands on the flipper buttons, hips shifting, knees bending, trying to influence the ball's trajectory through sheer force of will. The machine rewards and punishes in equal measure, the ball sometimes cooperating, rolling exactly where you want it, other times draining immediately down the centre with nothing you can do to prevent it. The best players develop reputations, drawing spectators who want to see how high a score can actually go. The attendant sits in a small booth near the entrance, surrounded by racks of stuffed animals and cheap toys, available as prizes for anyone who accumulates enough tickets from skee-ball or other redemption games. They make change, monitor for problems, occasionally intervene when machines malfunction, or disputes arise between players. They have seen everything, every victory celebration, every quarter-burning losing streak, every kid trying to cheat the system by tilting machines or jamming coin slots. Some players are here for hours, feeding machine after machine, chasing high scores or simply losing themselves in the repetitive comfort of familiar games. Others dart in for a few quick rounds, 20 minutes of entertainment before moving on to other parts of the mall. The arcade accommodates both, offering shallow experiences and deep wells of engagement depending on how much time and money you are willing to invest. The carpet is worn in paths between the most popular machines, showing the traffic patterns, the routes players walk while scanning for open games. The walls are covered with posters advertising upcoming releases, new games promising better graphics and more addictive gameplay. Some machines already have out-of-order signs taped to their screens, waiting for repair, their absence leaving gaps in the lineup like missing teeth. You lose track of time here easily. The arcade exists outside normal mall hours somehow, operating in its own temporal dimension where minutes stretch and compress, depending on how well you're playing. You think you've been here 15 minutes and discover it has been an hour. Your pile of quarters dwindles steadily, each coin dropped into a slot with a hope that this game will be the one, the perfect run, the high score, the moment worth remembering. Eventually your money runs out, or your thumbs cramp, or someone you know walks by and reminds you there is a world beyond these glowing screens. You step back out into the mall proper, blinking at the brighter lights, ears still ringing with electronic sounds, that waka 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 echoing in your head long after you've left the arcade behind. Inside the Anchor department store, you're no longer in a mall. You're in something older, something that predates the mall itself, a retail cathedral with its own rules and rhythms. The first floor is cosmetics and perfume, a cloud of competing scents that wraps around you the moment you enter. Women in lab coats stand behind counters, offering samples, demonstrating products with the seriousness of scientists. Escalators hum in the centre, carrying shoppers up and up, floor by floor, each level revealing new worlds. The cosmetics counters are islands of glass and chrome, each one dedicated to a different brand. Estée Lauder, Clinique, Revlon. The saleswomen are impeccably made up, their faces, advertisements for the products they sell, foundation flawless, lipstick perfect, eyeshadow blended with professional precision. They approach with practiced warmth, asking what you're looking for, what your skin type is, whether you have tried their new line. The perfume clouds are inescapable, each counter spraying testers throughout the day, creating layers of scent that blend into something both alluring and overwhelming. Customers pause to sample, spraying small clouds onto wrists, holding them up to noses, trying to detect the notes, the undertones, whether this is the scent that will define them. The bottles themselves are works of art, heavy glass in elegant shapes, designed to look beautiful on vanity tables. You approach the escalator and step on carefully, feeling that slight lurch as the moving stairs catch your weight. The handrail glides beneath your palm, slightly warm, slightly sticky from a day's worth of hands. You rise past the first floor's ceiling, ascending into the store's upper reaches, watching as new departments come into view. The second floor is typically women's clothing, racks stretching in every direction, organised by type and size and sometimes by designer. Saleswomen move between displays with armfuls of garments, restocking, rearranging, maintaining the careful organisation. Fitting rooms line one wall, small cubicles with mirrors and hooks, and lighting designed to be flattering, but honest. This is where decisions are made, where women stand turning, checking angles, imagining these clothes in their actual lives. The third floor reveals housewares, an entire universe of domestic goods. Dishes stacked in towering displays, china patterns that promise elegance at family dinners. Small appliances lined up on shelves, toasters and blenders and coffee makers gleaming with chrome and plastic promise. Bedding in another section, sheets and pillowcases and comforters arranged by thread count and colour. This is where couples come to register for weddings, walking aisles with clipboards, selecting the pieces that will furnish their shared future. Higher still, the fourth floor often holds furniture, actual rooms staged to show how pieces work together. Bedroom sets with matching dressers and nightstands, dining tables surrounded by chairs, place settings arranged as if dinner might be served, living room configurations with sofas and coffee tables, and lamps positioned just so. You can walk through these rooms, sit on the furniture, imagine these pieces in your own home, though the price tags often make that imagination painful. Each floor has its own atmosphere, its own clientele, its own rhythm. The ground floor moves quickly, people passing through. Upper floors are quieter, shoppers more purposeful, willing to make the journey for specific needs. Elevators provide an alternative to escalators, carpeted boxes that rise and fall with mechanical smoothness, doors opening to reveal new floors, new possibilities. The departments blur together after a while, menswear and children's clothing and electronics and linens, all existing in the same building but feeling like separate stores, each with its own small staff who know their inventory intimately. You can spend an entire afternoon here and barely scratch the surface, wandering from department to department, discovering needs you did not know you had, tempted by sales and displays and the particular magic of seeing something beautiful and imagining it as yours. At the centre of each floor, the escalators continue their patient work, carrying people up and down, connecting the levels, creating a vertical mall within the horizontal mall. You can stand beside them and watch the flow of shoppers rising and descending, an endless circulation of consumers and merchandise, desire and fulfillment, the engine that keeps the whole system running. The shoe store has a particular atmosphere, a quiet focus that feels almost meditative. Shoes line the walls on slanted shelves organised by style and size, each pair positioned just so. The carpet is industrial, designed to withstand foot traffic, and the lighting is bright, unforgiving, meant to show every detail. Salespeople move between customers with measuring tools and shoe horns, kneeling with practiced ease. You sit in cushioned chairs, waiting, watching as they disappear into the back room and return with stacked boxes balanced in their arms. The smell is distinct, leather and rubber and the faint chemical tang of new shoes fresh from boxes. It is a smell that promises newness, possibility, the transformation that comes from wearing something for the first time. The leather especially carries weight, a rich organic scent that signals quality, durability, an investment rather than a disposable purchase. You browse the displays first, walking slowly along the walls, examining styles. Platform shoes with their impossible heights, cork and wood and thick rubber soles that add inches to your stature, saddle shoes in classic two-tone, reminders of an earlier era that has never quite gone out of style. Sneakers in canvas and leather, Converse and Keds and brands promising athletic performance. Dress shoes polished to mirror shine, waiting for occasions formal enough to justify them. When you find something that interests you, a salesperson appears as if summoned. They ask your size but trust nothing to memory, pulling out the measuring device, that metal contraption you stand on while they adjust sliders and check numbers. Your feet are measured seriously, length and width, because proper fit matters more than vanity, more than squeezing into a size you wish you wore. They disappear into the back room, into that mysterious storage area where boxes are stacked floor to ceiling, organised by some system known only to employees who work here. You wait in the chair, which is padded but somehow still uncomfortable, positioned at an angle that makes reading, magazines on the side table slightly awkward. Other customers wait in adjacent chairs, everyone engaged in the same ritual, the same patient submission to the process of buying shoes. The salesperson returns bearing boxes, 4 or 5 balanced carefully, edges aligned. They kneel before you with professional grace, opening the first box, removing tissue paper, lifting out the shoe. They work the shoe onto your foot with a combination of pressure and encouragement, using the shoehorn to ease your heel past the back, telling you to stand, to walk, to feel how it fits. You stand and take a few experimental steps, feeling the newness, the stiffness, the way the shoe is not yet moulded to your particular foot. The salesperson watches critically, asking questions. How does the toe feel? Is there pressure anywhere? Can you wiggle your toes? They press thumbs against strategic points, checking for space, for fit, for potential problems that will emerge after hours of wearing. The mirror at the end of the aisle shows you your feet, these shoes, how they look from a distance. You turn, checking angles, trying to imagine these shoes in your actual life, walking hallways at school, standing at parties, lasting through whatever comes next. The salesperson offers opinions, gentle guidance toward yes or away from poor fits, their expertise built from years of watching people choose shoes and dealing with the returns from bad decisions. You try on multiple pairs, sometimes in different sizes, comparing fits and styles, weighing comfort against appearance, practicality against desire. The rejected boxes pile up beside your chair, testimony to the difficulty of finding the perfect shoe, the one that feels good and looks right and costs something you can actually afford. When you finally decide, the ritual of purchase begins. The salesperson boxes the chosen pair, checks the stock room for the correct size in an unopened box, rings up the sale with careful attention to detail. They offer products, waterproofing spray, insoles polish, accessories that promise to extend the life of your purchase. Some of these you accept, others you decline, depending on budget and perceived necessity. The box is placed in a bag, handles reinforced, substantial enough to carry the weight. You leave the store wearing your old shoes, the new ones protected and pristine in their box, waiting for the right moment to be worn for the first time. That moment when you will slide them on, lace them up, and walk out into the world slightly transformed by footwear, chosen with care and purchased with ceremony in this quiet, focused store that understands shoes are more than mere objects. They are foundations, literally and metaphorically, for everywhere you will go next. The music in the mall is everywhere and nowhere, a constant presence you stop noticing after the first few minutes. It drifts from ceiling speakers, instrumental versions of songs you recognize but cannot quite place, Strings swell gently, pianos tinkle. Everything is smoothed out, softened, designed not to distract but to create an atmosphere of pleasant, aimless wandering. The music is not meant to be listened to. It is meant to be felt, to create a background hum of normalcy that makes shopping feel less like work and more like leisure. The selections are carefully curated, nothing too fast or too slow, nothing too loud or too quiet, nothing controversial or challenging. Current hits appear but stripped of their vocals, reduced to melodies carried by orchestras that never existed in the original recordings. Yesterday's standards get similar treatment. Familiar songs from another era transformed into ambient sound that offends no one and pleases no one particularly but keeps the atmosphere from falling into silence. The tempo is calibrated to encourage a specific pace of walking, not too rushed, not too leisurely. Studies have been done, though you do not know this, research into how music affects shopping behaviour, how certain rhythms encourage spending while others create anxiety that drives people toward exits. The mall's music lives in that sweet spot, creating an environment where time stretches, where browsing feels natural, where the act of shopping itself becomes the entertainment rather than a means to an end. You recognize fragments sometimes, a melody that triggers memory even without words. A Beatles song reduced to violins and cellos, a Motown hit played on what sounds like a harpsichord. The recognition is fleeting, frustrating even, like trying to remember a name that hovers just beyond reach. You hum along unconsciously sometimes, much to your own surprise, realizing only when you notice someone looking at you that you've been making sound in harmony with the mall's endless soundtrack. The volume is consistent throughout the complex, maintained by systems that adjust automatically when ambient noise increases or decreases. In quiet corridors early in the day, the music is barely perceptible. During busy evening hours, it rises slightly to maintain its presence above conversations and footsteps and the general hum of commerce. But it never intrudes, never demands attention, never becomes loud enough to inspire complaint. Some shoppers claim not to hear it at all, their brains filtering it out as irrelevant background noise. Others find it maddening, this constant gentle assault of antiseptic melody, this refusal to commit to actual silence or actual music. They try to block it out with conversation or by focusing intensely on shopping tasks, but it persists, patient and unkillable, following them from store to store like a friendly ghost they cannot shake. The songs repeat throughout the day, but not so frequently that you would notice unless you spent 8 or 10 hours here, which employees do, which means they notice, they absolutely notice. Staff who work in the mall develop complex relationships with the music, learning every song in the rotation, anticipating transitions, sometimes timing their breaks or tasks to coincide with particularly dreaded selections. They request changes sometimes, write letters to mall management, band together in small rebellions that almost never result in actual adjustments to the playlist. Holidays bring themed variations, the same instrumental treatment applied to seasonal songs. Jingle Bells in July sounds wrong even as background music. Silent Night played on synthesizers in October confuses your sense of time. But come December, the holiday music feels almost appropriate, part of the larger seasonal transformation that includes decorations and special hours, and the particular frenzy of gift shopping. The music continues after closing, playing to empty corridors and darkened storefronts. Maintenance crews the only audience. It keeps going through the night in reduced volume, never fully stopping, as if silence would allow something else to take hold, some acknowledgement that the mall is artificial, temporary, a constructed environment that requires constant reinforcement to maintain its illusion of permanence and welcome. The candle shop is small, easy to miss, tucked between larger stores like a secret waiting to be discovered. but step inside and your nose is immediately overwhelmed. Dozens of candles burn on display, each one releasing its own scent into the warm air. Vanilla, cinnamon, pine, lavender. The smells layer and blend, creating combinations that are both comforting and slightly overwhelming. The walls are lined with shelves holding candles of every size and shape. Pillars and tapers and novelty candles moulded to look like fruit or flowers or cartoon characters. The air is thick with fragrance, so concentrated it feels almost physical, coating your throat when you breathe. Your nose tries to separate the individual scents but quickly gives up, overwhelmed by the sheer variety. Instead, the smell becomes one unified thing, a sweet, waxy, aromatic cloud that envelops you completely. Some people find it pleasant, soothing even. Others retreat quickly, noses twitching, eyes watering, declaring it too much. The candles themselves are arranged by scent family. Florals in one section, roses and lilacs and gardenias, each promising to bring spring indoors regardless of season. Baking scents in another, vanilla and cinnamon and apple pie, smells designed to evoke comfort, home, grandmother's kitchen. Outdoorsy scents occupy their own shelves, pine and cedar and fresh-cut grass, attempts to capture nature and contain it in wax. Many candles burn on display stands throughout the store, demonstrating not just scent but the quality of the burn itself, the steadiness of the flame, the way the wax melts into an even pool rather than tunneling down the centre. The flames flicker gently from passing customers, dancing in response to movement, creating subtle shifts in light that make the whole shop feel alive, animated by fire. The salespeople are enthusiasts, deeply knowledgeable about their products, ready to discuss burn times and scent throw and the superiority of certain waxes over others. They make recommendations based on careful questioning. What room is this for? What mood are you trying to create? Do you prefer sweet or fresh or spicy? They lift candles for you to smell, holding them at nose height, encouraging you to close your eyes and really experience the scent. Novelty candles occupy an entire wall, shaped like recognizable objects that seem almost too detailed to burn. Birthday cakes with layered wax frosting, fruits so realistic you want to bite them, animals in various poses, bears and cats and owls, all rendered in coloured wax. These are less about scent and more about decoration, conversation pieces, gifts for people who have everything else. The store sells accessories too, candle holders in brass and glass and ceramic, designed to catch dripping wax and protect surfaces, wick trimmers for maintaining proper flame height, snuffers for extinguishing candles without blowing smoke everywhere, matches in decorative boxes, longer than normal matches, designed specifically for reaching into tall glass holders. Some customers come with specific purposes, replacing candles they have burned through, restocking favourites, preparing for occasions that require ambience. Others browse without clear intent, simply enjoying the sensory experience, lifting candle after candle to their noses, sampling scents, building mental lists of possibilities. The shop encourages this kind of wandering, understanding that impulse purchases happen when people are allowed to fall in love slowly. Gift shopping happens here frequently. Candles being safe presents appropriate for almost any occasion. The store offers gift wrapping, tissue paper and ribbons and small cards for personal messages. A candle says, "I thought of you," without being too personal, without requiring deep knowledge of the recipient's taste or needs. It is a gift that will be used and appreciated and eventually consumed, leaving no permanent trace except perhaps a lingering scent association. Children are fascinated by the novelty candles but warned not to touch, flames and hot wax presenting obvious dangers. They stand with hands behind backs, leaning forward to peer at displays, asking questions about how candles are made, whether they can really burn the birthday cake candle or if it is meant to last forever. Parents guide them gently through the store, keeping them at safe distances from flames, occasionally relenting and purchasing one small-shaped candle as a treat. You leave the candle shop with your senses slightly altered, your nose full of competing fragrances that will take minutes to clear. If you purchase something, you carry it carefully, aware that candles are fragile, that dropping the bag might crack or break your new acquisition, and for hours afterward you will catch unexpected whiffs of the shop's atmosphere on your clothes, your hair, your skin, reminders of that small fragrant space tucked into the mall's larger ecosystem, that place dedicated entirely to the transformation of scent into commodity, of fire into decoration, of simple wax into something that promises to change the mood of any room it enters. For parents, the mall is both convenience and endurance test. They move more slowly than their children, weighed down by shopping bags and the mental calculations of budgets stretching to cover back-to-school clothes, birthday gifts, household necessities. Mothers pause at store windows, comparing prices in their heads. Fathers sit on benches near the fountain, ankles crossed, newspapers folded in their laps, waiting with the patient resignation of men who know this will take a while. They watch the crowds, the teenagers, the families, the endless flow of humanity moving past. The mothers are the generals here, commanding small units of children, issuing instructions in voices that somehow carry across the din without rising to shouts. Stay close. Don't touch that. We're not buying anything today. We're just looking. The children test these boundaries constantly, drifting toward toy stores and candy displays, drawn by colours and lights and the magnetic pull of things designed specifically to attract young eyes. Shopping with children requires strategies developed through experience. Some parents bring snacks, small bags of crackers or cookies deployed strategically to extend cooperation. Others promise rewards. If you are good through this next store, we will get ice cream after. These negotiations happen in whispers, parent bending to child's height, making eye contact, establishing terms that may or may not be honoured depending on behaviour in the intervening time. Strollers navigate the crowds like small ships, mothers pushing with one hand, usually carrying shopping bags in the other, steering around clusters of teenagers, and elderly shoppers moving at different speeds. The mall provides some accommodations, ramps at entrances, wider corridors in newer sections, but strollers still present challenges, particularly when trying to enter smaller shops with narrow doorways or crowded aisles. The fathers who wait on benches develop their own community, a loose fellowship of patient men who nod at each other in mutual understanding. They read newspapers or paperback novels pulled from jacket pockets. Some work crossword puzzles with short pencils, filling in answers with focused concentration. Others simply sit watching the human traffic, content to be still after days spent in motion elsewhere. They check their watches periodically but without real urgency, knowing their wives will return when the shopping's finished, not before. Inside stores, parents make calculations invisible to their children. They check price tags and mentally add totals, figuring out what can be afforded this trip and what must. Wait. They feel fabrics, checking quality, determining whether this item will survive the washing machine and the rough treatment of childhood. They hold shirts up to children's bodies, estimating sizes, debating whether to buy larger for growing room or accurate for current fit. The children grow restless after an hour, energy that seemed boundless in the parking lot now curdling into whining and dragging feet. Can we go yet? I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm bored. The parents respond with varying degrees of patience, some firm, some pleading, all trying to navigate between their own needs and their children's limitations. Just one more store. We're almost finished. You're doing so well. Bathroom trips become negotiating points. children suddenly desperately needing to go the moment a parent finds something worth examining closely. The family bathrooms, when available, become small refuges, places to regroup, to wipe faces, to have quiet conversations about behaviour expectations before rejoining the mall's chaos. Some parents split up, divide and conquer, one taking children to the play area or toy store, while the other shops efficiently through their list. They reunite at agreed-upon times and locations, comparing bags, sharing stories of finds or frustrations, redistributing children who have grown fussy with one parent and might behave better with the other. The play area, when the mall has one, offers salvation. Padded structures where children can climb and slide, burning energy while parents sit on surrounding benches, finally resting, finally still. Mothers chat with other mothers, sharing the universal experiences of parenting, swapping stories about sleepless nights and picky eaters, and the challenges of keeping small humans alive and reasonably civilized. By the time the shopping's finished, everyone is exhausted. The children are carried or dragged, depending on age and cooperation levels. The parents' arms ache from bags, their feet hurt from walking, their patience is worn to threads. But the mission is accomplished. School clothes purchased, birthday gifts acquired, household items checked off lists. The mall has served its purpose, providing everything needed under one roof, even if the cost was measured not just in money, but in energy and patience and hours of a Saturday that could have been spent differently. They load into cars in the parking lot, children strapped into seats, bags stuffed into trunks, everyone ready to be home, to collapse, to recover. And despite the exhaustion, despite the challenges, they will return. Next month or next season, when needs arise that only the mall can fulfill, they will come back, will navigate the same crowds, will exercise the same patience, will emerge once more victorious, exhausted and laden with bags. The camera store feels like a shop from another era, a place where equipment is displayed with reverence and expertise matters. Glass cases hold cameras in neat rows, lenses gleaming, bodies solid and precise. Behind the counter, salespeople who actually know what they're talking about discuss apertures and shutter speeds with customers who ask serious questions. The walls are lined with framed photographs, landscapes and portraits printed on glossy paper, proof of what these machines can do in skilled hands. The atmosphere here is hushed, serious, a temple dedicated to capturing light and preserving moments. Customers speak in lowered voices, not from any posted requirement, but from the same instinct that makes people quiet in libraries or museums. The equipment demands respect. These are not casual purchases. These are investments in a hobby or profession that requires learning, practice, dedication. The cameras rest on shelves and in cases organized by capability and price. Simple point-and-shoot models for casual users, their plastic bodies and fixed lenses promising ease of use if not artistic control. Manual SLR cameras for enthusiasts, metal bodies heavy. With possibility, interchangeable lenses that screw on with satisfying precision. Medium format cameras for professionals, larger, more expensive, capable of capturing detail that smaller formats cannot match. The salespeople wear glasses frequently, their fingers gentle and knowledgeable on equipment, lifting cameras with both hands, demonstrating features without condescension. They ask questions designed to understand your needs and skill level. What will you be photographing? Do you have experience with manual exposure? What is your budget? They listen carefully to answers, nodding, formulating recommendations based not on pushing expensive equipment, but on matching tools to abilities. They bring cameras out from cases, placing them on the counter on soft cloths, removing lens caps, showing you where controls are located and how they function. They discuss film speeds and depth of field, and the reciprocal relationship between aperture and shutter speed, concepts that sound complicated but become clearer through patient explanation and demonstration. They let you hold the camera, feel its weight, look through the viewfinder, understand what owning this tool would mean. Lenses occupy their own section, glass elements in metal housings, each one designed for specific purposes. Wide-angle lenses that capture expansive views, telephoto lenses that bring distant subjects close, macro lenses that reveal tiny details invisible to naked eyes, zoom lenses that offer flexibility at the cost of some image quality. The salespeople explain the trade-offs, the compromises inherent in lens design, helping you understand why certain lenses cost more and whether those costs are justified for your purposes. Film occupies racks near the register, boxes and canisters in various speeds and formats, black and white for artistic work or simply for developing at home, color negative for prints, slide film for projection. Each type has its characteristics, its ideal uses, its quirks and limitations. Buying film means committing to a certain number of exposures, 36 or 24 or sometimes 12 for medium format, each one a chance to capture something worth keeping, or a waste of a frame that cannot be recovered. Accessories fill the remaining space. Tripods in various sizes and weights, from compact models that fold small enough to fit in a bag to heavy professional stands that provide rock-solid stability. Light meters for measuring exposure more precisely than camera meters allow. Flash units for adding light where none exists naturally. Filters that screw onto lens fronts, changing colors or polarizing light, or protecting expensive glass from scratches and damage. The photographs on the wall serve as inspiration and instruction, showing what is possible, what you might achieve with practice and the right equipment. Landscapes captured during golden hour, light painting hills and valleys in warm tones. Portraits lit carefully, faces emerging from dark backgrounds, eyes sharp and compelling. Action shots frozen in perfect moments, athletes mid-jump, water drops suspended in air. Each photograph has a small card noting what equipment was used, an education in gear and technique for those willing to read and learn. Purchasing a camera here is not a quick transaction. The salesperson ensures you understand what you're buying, demonstrates how to load film, explains basic operation, answers questions that reveal your uncertainties and knowledge gaps. They include instruction manuals, warranty cards, sometimes small accessories like lens caps or straps that make the purchase feel complete. They write careful receipts, remind you about return policies, encourage you to come back with questions as you learn to use your new equipment. You leave carrying a bag heavier than you expected, not just with the physical weight of camera and accessories, but with the weight of possibility, of a new way of seeing the world, of the responsibility to actually use this tool you have just purchased rather than letting it gather dust in a closet. The camera store has not just sold you equipment, it has welcomed you into a community of people who care about images, about light, about capturing and preserving moments before they disappear forever. The sporting goods store is a warehouse of aspiration, every shelf stocked with equipment promising adventure, fitness, accomplishment. Tennis rackets hang on pegs, their strings taut and ready. Baseball gloves sit in neat rows, leather oiled and supple. Bicycles gleam near the entrance, their metal frames catching the overhead lights. In the back, there are racks of clothing, sweatshirts with team logos, shorts in shiny polyester, sneakers in boxes stacked to the ceiling. The air smells like rubber and canvas and possibility. The layout encourages exploration, different sections dedicated to different sports, each one its own miniature world. The tennis section has rackets, of varying weights and string tensions, cans of bright yellow balls, outfits in white that signal country club aspirations. The baseball section offers mitts in different sizes, bats in wood and aluminum, cleats with metal spikes that click authoritatively on hard floors. The basketball area features regulation balls and smaller models for younger players, hoops that attach to garage doors, high-top sneakers in bold colours. The camping section appeals to different instincts, promising escape to wilderness, self-sufficiency under stars. Tents display their collapsed forms alongside photographs of them pitched in beautiful locations. Sleeping bags hang from racks, rated for different temperatures, promising warmth in conditions you may never actually encounter. Backpacks in various sizes wait to be filled with supplies for journeys that exist mostly in imagination, but might someday actually happen. The bicycle area is positioned prominently, usually near the entrance where the bikes can be seen from outside, drawing customers in. They range from simple single-speed models to elaborate 10-speeds with gear shifters and handbrakes and lightweight frames. The seats are adjusted high on display models, frames shown to best advantage. Price tags dangle from handlebars, numbers that make parents wince and children promise they will definitely ride it every day forever. Salespeople here tend to be younger, often athletes themselves, wearing the store's polo shirts and khaki pants, moving with easy confidence. They know the equipment because they use similar gear, play the same sports, understand the difference between marketing claims and actual performance. Their recommendations carry weight earned through personal experience rather than just sales training. The fitness section caters to the growing interest in jogging and exercise. Racks of running shoes organised by brand and model, each promising better cushioning or support or speed. The shoes are displayed on angled shelves, their profiles visible, their colourful stripes and logos competing for attention. Customers sit on benches to try them on, jogging in place awkwardly, trying to determine if these shoes feel right without the benefit of actual running. Team sports equipment occupies substantial space, everything needed to outfit entire teams or individual players hoping to make the cut. Football helmets and shoulder pads for fall. Basketball jerseys in reversible mesh, one side coloured, the other white. Soccer balls and shin guards. Each sport has its specialised gear. Equipment that transforms regular clothing into uniforms. Regular people into athletes, at least in appearance. The clothing racks are picked over by late afternoon, sizes running low, popular items sold out until the next shipment arrives. What remains hangs in slightly dishevelled rows, sweatshirts and warm-up suits and t-shirts, with slogans about winning and effort and leaving it all on the field. Everything is designed to wick moisture and stretch with movement. Materials that promise performance enhancement even for recreational athletes, whose main competition is their own previous efforts. In the back corner, a clearance section offers last season's equipment at reduced prices, items whose colours or styles have been superseded by newer models, but whose functionality remains unchanged. Smart shoppers browse here first, understanding that fashion matters less than function, that a tennis racket does not care if it is this year's model or last year's, only whether it is the right weight and balance for the player using it. The store makes promises it cannot quite keep, suggesting that purchasing equipment will transform you into the athlete you imagine yourself becoming. The tennis racket will not make you a better player, but it might encourage you to play more often. The running shoes will not make you faster, but they might make running more comfortable and therefore more likely. The bicycle will not magically inspire daily rides, but it will be ready when motivation strikes. The equipment enables without guaranteeing, offers possibility without promising outcomes. At the register, purchases are rung up with enthusiasm, salespeople congratulating you on your choices, wishing you luck in your athletic endeavours, perhaps making a final pitch for accessories, socks designed for your sport, maintenance items for your equipment, magazines that promise training tips and inspiration. You leave carrying bags emblazoned with the store's logo, visible proof of intention, of commitment to physical activity, of aspiration toward a healthier, more active version of yourself who definitely exists and will definitely use all this equipment regularly, starting very soon. Became conscious of your posture, the way you held yourself differently now that you looked different. Your shoulders were back, your chin lifted slightly, your steps more measured and deliberate. This was not vanity exactly, though there was an element of that, but rather an awareness that you now matched the expectations of the world around you, that you looked like a proper woman should look in 1955. Other women noticed immediately. The ones you passed on the sidewalk would glance at your hair, register that you had just come from the salon, offer small smiles of recognition and approval. Some would comment, tell you it looked lovely, ask where you got it done even though everyone in town knew there were only 3 salons, and this style clearly came from Betty's. These exchanges were brief but meaningful, small moments of feminine solidarity, acknowledgement that you had put in the effort, and the effort had paid off. Men noticed too, though differently. Husbands and fathers and storekeepers would glance at you with a kind of general approval, not focused on your hair specifically, but on the overall effect, the sense that you had taken care of yourself, that you looked respectable and attractive in the wholesome, appropriate way that 1950s culture demanded. Their approval felt less personal than the women's, more like a collective male assessment that you were fulfilling your role correctly. You might stop at the drugstore on your way home, picking up a few items, and the clerk would compliment your hair while ringing up your purchases. You would thank him, feeling pleased but also slightly self-conscious, aware that your hair was drawing attention, making you more visible than usual. This visibility was the point, of course, the reason you spent hours in the salon and dollars your family could not always spare, but it still felt vulnerable somehow. Being seen, being assessed, being judged based on how well you maintained your appearance. The walk home took you past familiar landmarks, the hardware store, the bank, the bakery with its warm smells drifting onto the sidewalk. Everything looked the same as it had this morning when you walked to your appointment, but you felt different, transformed, temporarily elevated above the mundane details of daily life. The salon had worked its magic, and for a few hours at least, you could inhabit this polished version of yourself, this woman who looked like she had everything under control. Children playing on the sidewalk would stare at you frankly, taking in your elaborate hair, your careful posture, probably wondering why you look so fancy on an ordinary Saturday. You would smile at them, feeling maternal and benevolent, secure in your adult sophistication. Their mothers, watching from porches or windows, would understand immediately where you had been and why, fellow travellers in the weekly ritual of beauty maintenance. As you turned onto your street, you could see your house in the distance, modest and familiar, waiting for your return. The magic of the salon would fade once you crossed that threshold, once you put on your apron and returned to the work of cooking and cleaning and tending to family. But for now, walking down Main Street with your perfect hair and your polished nails, you allowed yourself to enjoy the transformation, to feel special and cared for, to believe that the effort was worthwhile. The goal, always, was to make your salon style last as long as possible between appointments. This required careful maintenance, sleeping on a satin pillowcase or wrapping your hair in a silk scarf to prevent crushing the curls, avoiding rain and humidity, touching your hair as little as possible. Some women could make a style last a full week, their hair still holding its shape when they returned to the salon for their next appointment. Others found that by mid-week things were starting to droop and flatten, and they would resort to pin curls at night or a quick brush and spray in the morning to revive the volume. But no matter how long it lasted, the goal was always the same, to preserve the salon magic, to hold on to that feeling of being polished and perfect for as long as possible. The first night was always the most precarious. You would prepare for bed with unusual care, treating your hair like a fragile artifact that might shatter if handled roughly. The satin pillowcase helped, its slippery surface allowing your hair to slide rather than catch and crush. But even so, you positioned yourself carefully, trying to sleep on your back or at an angle that minimized contact between your hair and the pillow. This was easier in theory than practice, and you often woke in awkward positions, neck stiff, having unconsciously maintained postures that protected your hairstyle at the expense of your own comfort. Some women went further, wrapping their hair in silk scarves before bed, creating elaborate turbans that covered everything, sealing in the style and the spray, protecting it from friction and moisture. These wraps took practice to execute properly, and even then they could slip during the night, leaving you with half your hair perfectly preserved and the other half mysteriously flattened. But when they worked beautifully, and you could wake up with your hair looking almost as good as it had when you left the salon. Daytime maintenance required constant vigilance. You learned not to lean your head back against furniture, not to let children grab your hair, not to put on sweaters or shirts that had to be pulled over your head. Rain was the enemy, capable of undoing hours of salon work in minutes, turning your stiff, structured hair into a drooping, frizzy mess. You carried a rain bonnet in your purse, one of those plastic folding things that looked ridiculous but worked, tying it under your chin at the first hint of moisture, protecting your investment. Humidity was worse than rain because it was invisible, insidious, working slowly to soften the hairspray and relax the curls. On humid days, you could actually feel your hair losing its structure, the carefully teased volume deflating, slightly, the smooth surface becoming less smooth. There was nothing to be done except stay indoors in the coolest, driest room available and hope for the best. Some women swore by additional applications of hairspray, building up layers like protective coating, but this made your hair even stiffer and eventually led to a sticky, gummy texture that was almost worse than letting it fall. By Wednesday or Thursday, signs of wear would appear. The crown might look slightly flatter, the ends less perky, the overall shape beginning to blur and soften. This was when you had to decide whether to attempt revival or simply accept decline. Revival required pin curls the night before, setting the hair while you slept, then brushing it out and respraying in the morning. This could extend the style another few days, though the results were never quite as good as the salon original, lacking the professional touch, the perfect placement, the ideal tension. Some women became expert at these home touch-ups, learning through trial and error which sections needed attention, how tight to make the pin curls, how much spray to use. Others gave up after a few disastrous attempts and simply pulled their drooping hair back into ponytails or scarves, waiting for Saturday and the next appointment, when Doris would restore everything to its proper glory. There was no shame in this surrender, just practical recognition that maintaining salon perfection was a full-time job, and most women had other things to do. By the time your next appointment arrived, your hair was usually ready for intervention. The style had either collapsed completely, or was being held together by increasingly desperate applications of spray and prayer. You would walk into the salon feeling slightly sheepish about the condition of your hair, but Doris never judged. She'd seen it all before, understood the challenges of making a style last, knew that the inevitable deterioration was simply part of the cycle that kept her employed. For weddings, proms, and other special occasions, the beauty salon became even more essential, a place where ordinary women could be transformed into something extraordinary. Appointments for these events were made weeks in advance, and the stylist would spend extra time adding elaborate updos, weaving in ribbons or flowers, creating styles that were more art than everyday wear. The bride would arrive early in the morning, sometimes with her mother and bridesmaids, and the salon would buzz with excitement, everyone contributing to the collective effort of making this day perfect. These appointments cost more, took longer, but they were worth it, because the photographs would last forever, and you wanted to look your absolute best. The salon took on a different atmosphere on these special mornings, charged with an energy that was both nervous and joyful. The bride was the centre of attention, her anxiety palpable, her hope that everything would turn out perfectly, mixing with the fear that something would go wrong. Doris would work on her personally, knowing that this was her most important client of the day, that the bride's satisfaction would be remembered and discussed, and possibly recommended to future brides for years to come. The styling for weddings was elaborate by necessity and tradition. Simple wash and sets would not do for a bride. She needed height and structure and ornament, something that would photograph well from every angle, that would hold up through hours of ceremony and reception, that would make her feel beautiful and special and worthy of the day's attention. Doris would create foundations of teased hair so substantial they could probably support small buildings, then arrange the smooth outer layer in intricate patterns, loops and twists and carefully positioned curls that followed the contours of the head like architectural elements. Flowers were often incorporated, real ones when possible, carefully wired into the style, so they would not wilt or fall out during the ceremony. Roses, carnations, baby's breath, whatever matched the bride's bouquet and colour scheme, tucked into strategic locations to add softness and romance to the structured hair. These flowers required careful placement and additional pins to secure them, and Doris would work with the concentration of a jeweller setting precious stones, making sure everything was perfectly positioned before moving on. Veils complicated everything. They had to be attached securely but also removably, since most brides wanted to take them off for the reception, and the attachment points had to be hidden within the hairstyle, invisible in photographs. Doris used special combs and pins designed for this purpose, testing the veil's security multiple times, making the bride shake her head gently to ensure nothing would come loose during the walk down the aisle. The veil itself added volume and drama, cascading down the bride's back, and Doris would arrange it, carefully, making sure it lay properly, that it did not catch on the hair or create awkward bumps or gaps. Bridesmaids received similar but simpler styling, their hair done to complement the bride without competing with her. They sat in a row, usually giggling and chattering with nervous excitement, sharing the collective experience of preparing for the wedding. Doris and the other stylists would work efficiently, moving from one bridesmaid to the next, creating coordinated styles that looked good individually, but also harmonized as a group. These appointments were less stressful than the bride's, more social and fun, though the bridesmaids still took their roles seriously, understanding that they would be in photographs too, that their appearance mattered to the overall aesthetic of the wedding. Mothers of brides and grooms received special attention as well, their styles more mature but no less carefully executed, appropriate to their age and position while still being special, enough for the occasion. They often had specific ideas about what they wanted, having thought about this day for years, and Doris would listen patiently, incorporating their requests while gently steering them towards styles that would actually work, that would suit their hair texture and face shape, that would photograph well. The energy in the salon on these mornings was contagious, spreading even to the regular clients who happened to be there for ordinary appointments. Everyone wanted to see the bride, to offer congratulations and well wishes, to participate in some small way in the excitement. The salon became a communal space of celebration, women supporting women through one of life's major transitions, beauty work elevated from routine maintenance to meaningful ritual. The beauty salon was also a place where traditions passed from mother to daughter, where young girls accompanied their mothers and watched the rituals, absorbing the lessons about femininity and self-care and the importance of putting effort into your appearance. By their teenage years, many girls had their own standing appointments, sitting in the same chairs their mothers had sat in, listening to the same stylists share the same kinds of stories. It created a continuity, a sense of belonging to something larger than yourself, a community of women across generations all participating in the same rituals, all seeking the same transformation. Young girls would come to the salon with their mothers, too young yet for their own appointments but old enough to watch and learn. They would sit quietly in the waiting area, eyes wide, taking in everything, the sounds and smells, the transformation happening in the styling chairs, the casual intimacy between their mothers and the stylists. They would flip through magazines designed for adults, studying the fashion and beauty pages, absorbing ideas about what they might look like someday when they were grown and allowed to wear lipstick and high heels. Doris and the other stylists would acknowledge these young observers, offering them small attentions, complimenting their dresses or asking about school, making them feel included in the salon's community, even though they were not yet participants. Sometimes, if the girl's mother agreed, Doris would trim the girl's bangs or pin a flower in her hair, small gestures that made the child feel special, and began her education in beauty rituals. By age 13 or 14, most girls would receive their first real salon appointment, a rite of passage as significant as their first school dance or their first pair of nylon stockings. They would sit nervously in the styling chair, unsure what to expect, conscious of being treated like adults for perhaps the first time in their lives. Doris would work gently with these young clients, understanding their nervousness, keeping the transformation subtle enough to feel comfortable, but significant enough to feel special. A trim, a simple set, maybe a ribbon woven through, nothing too dramatic, but enough to make the girl feel grown up, beautiful, worthy. These first appointments were often mother-daughter bonding experiences, the mother sitting nearby, offering advice and reassurance, watching her daughter join the community of women she herself had been part of for years. There was emotion in these moments, pride and nostalgia, and a touch of sadness as mothers recognized their daughters growing up, stepping into the same rituals they had learned from their own mothers, this cycle continuing across generations. As the girls became regular clients, they would develop their own relationships with the stylists, separate from their mothers, their own preferences and styles emerging. But the connection to their mothers remained, visible in the similar ways they tilted their heads while checking their reflections, in the familiar phrases they used when describing what they wanted, in the trust they placed in the same hands that had styled, their mothers and grandmothers before them. Grandmother sometimes came to the salon too, older women with silver hair and slower movements, treated with extra deference and care. Doris would adjust her techniques for their more fragile hair, their more sensitive scalps, creating styles that were age-appropriate but still beautiful, acknowledging that beauty did not end at a certain age, that the desire to look one's best continued throughout life. These older women carried the salon's history with them, remembered when Doris herself was young and just learning, when the salon was new and the neighborhood looked different, when prices were lower and styles were different, but the basic rituals remained the same. The salon became, in this way, a living archive of the community's women, a place where generations overlapped and traditions were transmitted not through formal teaching, but through observation and participation. Young girls learned by watching their mothers, absorbed the rituals without being explicitly taught them, and in turn would pass these same rituals to their own daughters, creating an unbroken chain of beauty maintenance that stretched backward into memory and forward into the future. In the end, the 1950s beauty salon was about more than just hair and nails. It was about community, connection, and the small weekly ritual that gave women a space of their own in a world that often felt overwhelming and demanding. It was about taking time for yourself, even if that time involved discomfort and chemicals and sitting under a roaring dryer for an hour. It was about the relationships built between stylist and client, the trust that developed over years of shared confidences and careful transformations, And it was about the simple, profound pleasure of looking in the mirror and liking what you saw, of walking out into the world feeling just a little bit more confident, a little bit more ready to face whatever came next. The salon existed as a counterbalance to the rest of life, a space carved out of the endless domestic duties and family obligations that filled women's days. At home, you were mother, wife, housekeeper, cook, nurse, teacher, all roles that served others, that required you to subordinate your own needs to the needs of those around you. But at the salon, for a few precious hours each week, you were the one being served, being cared for, being attended to with focus and skill. Someone else was solving your problems, making you beautiful, giving you the gift of their time and attention. This reversal was psychologically significant, even if few women would have articulated it in those terms. The salon provided respite, a break from the relentless demands of family life, a chance to sit still and do nothing except allow yourself to be pampered. The physical transformation was real and important, but the emotional restoration might have been even more valuable, the opportunity to be treated as an individual, worthy of care rather than as a support system for others. The relationships forged in the salon were unique, occupying a space between friendship and professional service that allowed for unusual intimacy. You might not invite Doris to your home for dinner, might not socialize with her outside the salon, but you trusted her with information you would not share with closer friends, knew she understood aspects of your life that even your husband might not fully grasp. This intimacy was bounded and safe, contained within the salon's walls, ending when you walked out the door but resuming the following week, consistent and reliable. The salon also represented a form of self-respect, a declaration that you mattered enough to invest time and money in your appearance. In an era that constantly emphasized women's service to others, the weekly salon appointment was a small act of self-assertion, a reminder that you existed as a person separate from your roles as wife and mother. The money spent was not frivolous but necessary, essential maintenance of the self that enabled you to continue performing all those other roles effectively. For many women, particularly those who did not work outside the home, the salon was also one of the few places where they had expertise and autonomy. Domestic work was often invisible and undervalued, but beauty knowledge was visible, social, worth discussing and comparing. Understanding which styles worked best for different face shapes, which products delivered on their promises, which salons had the most skilled stylists. This was a form of female knowledge that was respected and shared, creating bonds between women and giving them something to take pride in beyond their service to their families. The salon's democratic nature was also significant. Rich and poor women sat in adjacent chairs, received similar services, participated in the same rituals. Economic differences existed, of course. Some women could afford weekly appointments, while others came every 2 weeks or monthly. Some added manicures and permanents, while others stuck to basic wash and sets. But everyone was welcomed, everyone received care and attention, everyone left looking better than when they arrived. This temporary equality created a sense of shared womanhood that transcended class boundaries, at least within the salon's walls. Walking out of the salon fresh and polished represented a small victory, proof that you could still transform yourself, still become someone worthy of admiration and attention, still participate in the public performance of femininity that 1950s culture demanded. The style might last only a few days before beginning to deteriorate, but those few days mattered, providing a window of confidence and self-satisfaction that sustained you through the less glamorous realities of daily life. The beauty salon was, ultimately, a gift women gave themselves in an era that constantly asked them to give to others, was expensive and time-consuming and sometimes uncomfortable, but it was theirs, a space and a ritual that belonged to them, that acknowledged their worth and their beauty and their right to care for themselves. And that, perhaps more than the actual hair and nails, was what made it essential. The hair salon sits on the second level, tucked between a boutique and a card shop, announcing itself with the chemical smell of permanent solution and hairspray that drifts into the corridor. Inside, the air is warm and humid, thick with competing scents, shampoo and setting lotion, and the sharp tang of ammonia from dye jobs in progress. Mirrors line one wall, reflecting stations where women sit draped in plastic capes while stylists work magic or commit crimes depending on skill and communication. The sound is constant. Blow dryers roaring, scissors snipping, conversations shouted over the mechanical noise. The waiting area holds mismatched chairs, a coffee table stacked with magazines months, out of date, their pages soft from repeated handling. Women flip through them while waiting for their appointments, studying hairstyles on models whose hair behaves in ways real hair never does. Pictures that promise transformation, if you can just find the right cut, the right colour, the right stylist who understands your vision. The stylists wear smocks over their clothes, pockets stuffed with combs and clips and bobby pins, scissors hanging from holsters at their hips like weapons. They move with practiced efficiency, hands working while mouths talk, conducting conversations that range from weather to gossip to life advice, dispensed with the authority of people who see dozens of clients weekly and therefore consider themselves experts on human nature. The shampoo station is at the back, a row of sinks with chairs that recline, placing your head in bowls while water runs warm, then hot, then cold, depending on the plumbing's mood. The stylist's fingers work shampoo into lather, massaging your scalp with pressure that somehow communicates their mood, gentle when they are patient, aggressive when they are rushed. The rinse comes in streams that always find your ears no matter how carefully towels are positioned. You sit up dripping, a towel turbaned round your head, water running down your neck in cold rivulets. At the cutting station, you sit facing your reflection while the stylist stands behind, assessing, lifting sections of hair, discussing what you want versus what they think will actually work. Photographs are produced sometimes, torn from magazines, held up for reference. You point at the model's hair, explaining length and style, while the stylist nods and makes noises that might be agreement or might be planning something completely different based on their professional judgment of your hair's texture and your face's shape. The scissors move with quick precision, chunks of hair falling to the cape draped across your lap, tumbling to the floor in piles that will be swept up later. You watch in the mirror, trying to see what the stylist sees, whether this is going well or heading toward disaster. The question is always there, unspoken but present, whether you will leave looking better or worse, whether this risk will pay off or cost you weeks growing out a regrettable decision. Older women occupy chairs near the window, sitting under dome dryers that look like space helmets, their hair wrapped in curlers, magazines held up close because the noise makes conversation impossible. They have been coming here for years, the same stylist, the same time every week, their standing appointments as reliable as any other routine in their organised lives. The salon knows their preferences, their usual colours, the exact way they like their hair teased and sprayed into shapes that will survive until the next appointment. Younger women opt for different services, feathered cuts that require blow drying and careful brushing to achieve that, Farrah Fawcett's sweep. They sit patiently while stylists work round brushes through their hair, the dryers heat uncomfortable but necessary, the final product worth the discomfort when it turns out right. The mirror reveals the transformation gradually, wet hair becoming styled hair, messy becoming polished before becoming after. The colouring station handles more dramatic transformations, women seeking to cover grey or change their natural shade entirely, to become blondes or redheads, or add highlights that suggest sun-kissed vacation lifestyles. The chemicals smell sharp and slightly dangerous, mixed in bowls and painted onto sections of hair with brushes, covered with foil or plastic caps, left to process while timers tick and women read magazines and try not to think about whether this was a good idea. Payment happens at a small desk near the entrance, the stylist calculating cost, adding tip expectations into the total they quote. You hand over bills, receiving change, and a business card with your next appointment written on the back in looping script. The stylist sprays your hair one final time, a cloud of aerosol that ensures your style will survive at least until you reach the parking lot, possibly longer if humidity cooperates. You leave transformed or disappointed or somewhere in between, catching glimpses of your reflection in store windows, checking whether the hair looks as good outside the salon's lighting as it did in the mirror, whether this new version of yourself matches what you imagined when you sat down in that chair and surrendered control to scissors and chemicals and someone else's vision of what looks best. The card and gift shop is a repository of sentiments, every emotion available in printed form, filed alphabetically by occasion and recipient. Birthday cards fill an entire wall, subcategorized by age and relationship. Funny cards separate from sincere ones, nieces distinct from nephews. There are cards for occasions you did not. No required cards, congratulations on your promotion, sympathy for your surgery, thinking of you during this difficult time. The air smells like paper and ink, and the scented candles displayed near the register. You enter with a specific need, someone's birthday or an upcoming wedding, an obligation to mark an occasion with something more substantial than a phone call, but less involved than an actual gift. The racks tower above you, cards displayed in slots, their colourful fronts promising the perfect words for whatever you need to express, but cannot quite articulate yourself. The greeting card aisle requires patience, flipping through dozens of options, reading verses that range from mawkish to genuinely touching, searching for the one that matches your relationship with the recipient and your own tolerance for emotional display. Some cards are elaborate, featuring pop-ups or musical chips that play tinny renditions of birthday songs when opened. Others are simple, single panels, with minimal text, trusting that less is more when it comes to manufactured sentiment. The humour cards occupy their own section, jokes about aging and marriage and work, cartoons that mine the same territory sitcoms do, gentle mockery of universal experiences. You read through them, some landing, some falling flat, trying to determine whether the recipient will appreciate this particular brand of humour or find it annoying. The line between funny and offensive is narrow and subjective, and choosing wrong means your card will be tossed rather than displayed on the mantel with others. Beyond the cards are the gifts, shelves of items designed to be given rather than purchased for yourself. Figurines in pewter and ceramic, representing occupations and hobbies, teachers and nurses and golfers frozen in characteristic poses. Decorative boxes that promise to hold jewellery or keepsakes, but usually end up holding nothing, too precious for everyday use, too bland to display prominently. Picture, frames in every size and material, waiting to hold memories not yet made. The seasonal section rotates constantly. Christmas items in November and December, Valentine's merchandise in January and early February, graduation gifts appearing in spring. The store responds to the calendar, ensuring that whatever occasion is approaching has dedicated shelf space, that customers can find themed napkins and decorations and small gifts appropriate to the moment. Stuffed animals fill bins near the checkout, bears and dogs and generic creatures in various sizes, all holding hearts or wearing t-shirts proclaiming love or congratulations or get well soon. They're impulse purchases mostly, additions to actual gifts, ways to make presents feel more substantial or more personal, without requiring additional thought about what the recipient actually wants or needs. Gift bags have replaced wrapping paper for many shoppers, displayed on racks organised by size and occasion, tissue paper sold nearby in coordinating colours, The bags promise convenience, no tape or scissors required, just stuff the gift inside, add tissue paper, attach a card, and you are done. The extra cost over brown paper bags is worth it for the time saved and the appearance of effort even when minimal effort was actually expended. The store attracts certain demographics reliably, women mostly, performing the emotional labour of maintaining relationships through timely card sending and appropriate gift giving. They know which cousins have birthdays coming up, which co-workers are having babies, which friends are going through divorces and need thinking of you cards. They shop with lists, checking off obligations, ensuring no one is forgotten, maintaining the social bonds that might fray without these small gestures of acknowledgement. At the register, the clerk asks if you found everything okay, whether you need a gift receipt in case the recipient wants to exchange, whether you would like the card in a bag or carried separately. They handle your purchase with the bored efficiency of people who ring up sentiment all day, who have stopped reading the cards or caring about the occasions, who simply process transactions and restock shelves and count hours until their shift ends. You leave with your card in a small bag, perhaps a gift as well, having spent 20 minutes and $10 to express feelings that a phone call could have conveyed, but somehow a card does better. That physical object that can be saved and displayed, that tangible proof that someone remembered, that you cared enough to drive to the mall, enter the store, search through options, and select this specific card for this specific person on this specific occasion. And maybe that effort, small as it is, matters more than the printed words inside, that manufactured sentiment that somehow becomes real through the act of choosing and giving. Outro. So tonight, as you settle back into your own time, take a moment to appreciate what we just walked through together. The 1970s American mall was more than glass and steel and merchandise arranged on shelves. It was a place where people gathered, where teenagers discovered independence, where families spent Saturdays, where the simple act of being somewhere with others created connection in ways we're still learning to miss. It was fountains and Muzak and the smell of orange Julius. It was record stores and shoe fittings and the particular patience of parents waiting on benches. It was ordinary and extraordinary, mundane and somehow magical, all at once. The people who walked those corridors did not think they were living through a chapter that would close. They were just living, buying what they needed, browsing what they wanted, spending time in the only way that made sense given the world they inhabited. They made wishes at fountains. They tried on platform shoes. They shared sodas and secrets. They built memories without knowing they were building them, without understanding that someday these simple Saturday afternoons would feel precious, irretrievable, worth remembering. And maybe that is what we carry forward, not the mall itself, but what it represented. The willingness to slow down, to wander without purpose, to be present in shared spaces, to notice small joys, the sparkle of water, the sound of laughter, the feeling of belonging to something larger than yourself. History is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just people gathering under one roof, looking for things they need and finding community they did not know they were seeking. And that is enough. That has always been enough. Rest well tonight, knowing that the mall, in memory at least, is always there. Doors open, fountain running, ready to welcome you home.